Welcome to another installment of Exploring with Jason. Today we're at Glendale Cemetery, learning about one of the founders and forming the Alcohol Anonymous group, Henrietta Seiberling. Even though she's not buried here in Glendale in Akron, Ohio, her husband and her son and the rest of the Seiberling family are buried here. So she's actually, Henrietta is actually buried in New York, in Kentucky. But we are going to learn about her life and legacy. And so let's go on and learn about Henry. Well, before we do that, we're going to do, in this video, we're going to do two stories, two individuals, and both of them are connected to Alcohol Anonymous in the creation of Alcoholics Anonymous for the Akron section or whatever. The first one we're going to learn about is Henrietta Seiberling, and the other one we're going to travel to Mount Peace Cemetery to learn about the life and legacy of Robert Bob Smith. So without further ado, let's get going and learn about Henrietta. The first story. Henrietta Buckler Seiberling was born on March 14, 1888 in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, to the parents of Judge Julius Augustus and Mary M. Malice Buckler. She spent her childhood in El Paso and San Antonio, Texas. A gifted pianist, she attended Vassar College, where she earned an A.B. degree with a major in music and a minor in psychology. She would eventually meet John Fred Seiberling, who was a lieutenant in the Ohio National Guard while he was deployed in El Paso. The couple married in 1917 in Akron, Ohio, and they went on to have 3 children, with one of them being the governor of Ohio. Though Henrietta was a alcoholic, she believed as a believer and a Christian that it was her obligation and responsibility to solve social problems. She began the alcoholic or quote unquote alcoholic squad of the Oxford group movement. In her first case, Dr. Smith, which we will be going after this, visiting him and learning about him, admitted that he was a secret drinker, marking the first time the Akron Oxford prayed together to help through alcoholism. Although the majority of the Seiberling family were members of the Lutheran church near their house, she was not a member. Seiberling was more of a quote-unquote student of the Bible rather than a quote-unquote churchgoer. As her and Frederick's marriage were crumbling, Henrietta became involved with the Oxford group. And her daughter, Dorothy, said, quote, it gave her a new focus. It helped her see that there was more to life than marital problems. Henrietta grew closer to Bob and Anne, and would call Anne every day to talk about the comfort they both received through the Oxford group. In addition, the Seiberlings' effort to help sober up Bob in her Oxford group, the Seiberling became famous in AA history, introducing Bill Williams or Wilson to Bob. After Bill worked with Bob for a while, Bob had his last ever drink on June 10, 1935, a date which became the AA founding date. Henrietta and her husband were devoted supporters of the Alcoholics Anonymous, opening their homes to its members, and also leading the meetings of the Oxford group for those who were interested. Her son, John F. Seiberling, was a representative in the U.S. Congress from Ohio and was a member of the Democratic Party. He was also, or they had two daughters, Mary and Dorothy, who was a deputy and editor for the New York Times magazine. Henrietta would pass away on December 5th, 1975 in New York, New York, at the age of 91 years old. Like I said, she isn't buried here, but her family is, but she's actually buried in Lawrenceburg Cemetery in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. So this is the first part of the duo of the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Her husband's buried here and her family's buried here. So with that, let's get on and let's move to the next cemetery. Now we're back. Now we're at the next grave, the last grave, and the second part and the last part of the story. We first visited the grave of the Seiberling family, learning about Henrietta. But now we're going to learn about Bob Smith, the second part and the last part of the story. So let's walk the cemetery ground and walk to his grave and learn about Bob Smith. Bob Smith, Bob or Robert Holbrook Smith was born on August 8, 1879 at St. Johnsbury, Vermont, to the parents of Walter Perrin and Ann Robinson Holbrook Smith. His parents took him to religious services 4 times a week. In response, he was determined that he would never attend religious services when he grew up. He would attend and graduate St. Johnsbury Academy in 1898, having met where he would meet his future wife, Ann Robinson Ripley, at the dance at the school held. Smith began drinking while attending Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire, where he noticed he could recover from drinking about quicker and easier than his classmates, and that he never had a headache, which caused him to believe he was an alcoholic from the time he began drinking. He was a member of the Kappa fraternity at Dartmouth, and after graduating in 1902, he worked for 3 years selling hardware in the Boston, Chicago, and Montreal area, and continued drinking heavily. He then returned to school to study medicine at the University of Michigan. By this time, he was drinking, and the drinking began to affect him to the point where he would begin missing classes. His drinking caused him to leave school, but he returned and passed his examinations for sophomore year. He was transferred to Rush Medical College, but his alcoholism worsened to the point that his father was summoned to try to halt his downward trajectory. But his drinking increased, and after a dismissal showing during the final examination, the university required that he remained for 2 extra quarters and remain sober during the time as his condition of graduating. After graduation, he became a hospital intern, and for 2 years he was able to stay busy enough to refrain from heavy drinking. Both him and Ann were married on January 25, 1915, and upon his own office, and opened his own office in Akron, Ohio, specializing in colorectal surgery, and he would return to heavy drinking. Recognizing his problem, he checked himself into more than a dozen hospitals and sanatoriums, and in a effort to stop his drinking. He was encouraged by the passage of prohibition in 1919, but soon discovered that he soon discovered that the exemption for medical alcohol and bootleggers could supply more than enough to continue his excessive drinking. For the next 17 years of his life revolved around how subvert his wife's effort to stop his drinking and obtain the alcohol he craved while trying to hold together a medical practice in order to support his family and his drinking. In January 1933, Smith attended a lecture by Frank Buckman, the founder of the Oxford Group, and for the next 2 years, Smith attended the local meetings of the group in an effort to solve his alcoholism. But his recovery eluded him until he met Bill Wilson on May 12, 1935. Wilson was an alcoholic who had learned how to stay sober, thus far only for some limited amounts of time. Through the Oxford Group in New York, he was close to discovering long-term sobriety by helping out others dealing with alcohol, or helping other alcoholics. Wilson was in Akron on a business that had proven unsuccessful, and he was in fear of relapsing. Recognizing the danger, he made inquiries about any local alcoholics he could talk to, and was referred to Smith by Henrietta Seiberling, which we already did, after the person that we just talked about. She was one of the leaders of the Akron Oxford Group. After talking to Wilson, Smith stopped drinking and invited Wilson to stay at his home. However, he relapsed almost a month later while attending a professional convention in Atlantic City. Returning to Akron on June 9th, he was given a few drinks by Wilson and to avoid delirium tremens, he drank one beer the next morning to settle his nerves so he could perform an operation, which proved to be the last alcoholic drink he would ever have. The date was June 10, 1935, where was a celebrated day, which is the same day the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous. Smith was was called the Prince of 12 Steppers, quote unquote, by Wilson because of he helped more than 5,000 alcoholics before his death. He was able to stay sober from June 10th, 1935 until his death on November 16th, 1950, from colon cancer. He is buried here at Oakwood at Mouthpiece Cemetery in Akron, Ohio. And as we're approaching, we noticed that he has a really nice monument, though. So, what do you think of these two stories? They're both very influential. So, I like this one vase or whatever over here saying honesty, charity, and unselfishness and love. That's pretty cool. So that's about it. What do you think of the episode of these two people? Please share your comments and beliefs or your comments below. And if you live in the Akron, Ohio area and you suffer from addiction of alcohol and you are sober and you recover and you believe that Alcohol Anonymous did you well, and I would like to hear your story. Please share your story. I would love to hear it. I know there's a lot of testimonies, so if you want to share it, please share. So, with that said, until next time, I look forward to seeing you next time on the next adventure.